Hello and welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Caw and I'm delighted as ever to be joined by the one and only Keith Jackson. Keith, happy Easter.
Yeah, happy Easter. Feels like we've never really been away, wasn't it? Late night, Thursday night, in this very same situation. But, football never stops, Daniel. Some big games at Hampden over the last 24 hours. And congratulations, Celtic, in completing the domestic treble.
Well, we'll come to Celtic in a wee minute. But before we go any further, the big questions need to be answered. What's your favourite Easter egg?
Oh, well, actually, got one now. Cadbury's Twirl.
Classic.
Big fan of that.
I would go cream egg. So there you go. Everyone will sleep better tonight. I think probably Celtic is the best place for us to start, as it was today's game. I know you're kind of tongue-in-cheek mentioning it there, but they were utterly ruthless today, Celtic.
I'm not tongue-in-cheek, Daniel. I'm not. I've been saying it for weeks and weeks and weeks. Celtic will complete the treble. I actually, if I was Aberdeen, I'd be a little bit worried about what's lying ahead for them, because Celtic are just relentless. The standard of performance today, typified, and you know what I'm going to say here, by one man, Callum McGregor.
He was brilliant today.
He's just, he was so good today that I know you and I were having a sort of a debate last week about, is it Idah or McGregor for Celtic's player of the season? You watch that level of performance from him today and you just realise how, invaluable he is to the team. I actually thought, Dan, to be fair, Johnson were doing okay. They were hanging in. They were making it difficult. What was it? 34 minutes. It was still 0-0. The game plan was sort of working, and I felt at that moment in time, Cal McGregor it was almost as if he said, "Right, enough," and he decided at that point that he was going to influence it and basically win it. Do you know what I find fascinating about the Celtic side is it's always almost as if there's points in games where they manifest what they see, what they want to happen, and they make it happen. And I'll give you an example. The first goal, Alistair Johnson goes and wins a header that normally a fullback might just sit off it. There's no imminent danger coming from St Johnstone, but Alistair Johnson knew in his head if he could get there first, win it, he'll trigger something. And it did, and then McGregor goes up. He demands it was a lovely little back heel from Atati. He demanded it. And then if you look at his body shape as he's walking on it, you know exactly what he's going to do. He knows what he's doing. It's happening a split second earlier inside his own head than the actual reality. And I tell you what, the exact same thing happens at the second goal. Because if you watch it, there's a bit where McGregor goes full pelt to make an angle to receive the pass, and he's bursting to get there. And it's because he knows, he can see the picture, he can see, if this ball comes into me here, I'm going to put it into Idah, I'll get it back and I'll play. He's visualised it. Rio Hattati does something similar for the third, doesn't he? Where he makes the run, basically demands the pass, great pass from Scales. But when Celtic are actually visualising how they're going to score goals and beat teams and then making it happen, everybody else has got a problem. That was painful from a St Johnstone perspective, because put a lot of work in, they were stubborn, they were stuffy, and they were just taken apart in the space of 10 minutes. Where concede 4 goals, and at that point it could be anything. They'll probably be quite relieved to have got back up the road with no, really embarrassing or serious damage done. But nobody can live with Celtic when they're playing at that level. And I have to say, it comes back to my original point there. McGregor's at the heart of everything. And he has been. It's been like that all season.
Well, Keith, is there any way you could make an argument for him being player of the year? I mean, I think you can make the argument for him being player of the year, rather. Do you think he could win it? Because I was like you today. I was blown away by his performance. He was just relentless.
Yeah, but it just, it's not as if you're watching them deciding who should be player of the year on the basis of 90 minutes at Hampden today.
He's been that way all season, of course.
The fact is that he's been regularly raising standards when Celtic have maybe been struggling to get a breakthrough moment. Invariably, he does something to make it happen. And I kind of last week, I think I said you would go with Idah probably because he's getting the headlines, the goals, and you always like a goal scorer.
2 more today, of course, as well, which,
But there you go. He did get 2 more today, but for me, Callum McGregor was hands down, head and shoulders, the best player on the pitch.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe that performance tipped me back into the Callum McGregor camp. But as I said to you, I'm not saying that as a knee-jerk reaction because he had a good game and he was the best player on the pitch today. I just, what I think. I've said it often enough in this show. I love watching the guy go about his business. He's a really intelligent operator in the middle of the pitch. And he's absolutely the guy that pulls all Celtic strings.
I've been putting some comments up there just as we're talking. A few more James Hoops. Superb performance from the Hoops this afternoon. Now for the treble. Kieran Boyle, you're watching Glasgow Celtic turning on the style. See, going back to the treble thing, Keith, it's actually mad how much Celtic have normalised winning a treble. I think this if they do win it, be 6 and 9 seasons.
It's crazy.
Mentioned before that between 1969 and 2000, they didn't win any. Yeah. And there was 6 years in the 90s where Celtic didn't win a trophy at all. So for I don't know, I just can't get over how normal it is now for Celtic to win a treble.
And it should never be viewed as normal. And the problem is that there's a danger that Celtic view the treble now as par. And it's not. It's an outstanding achievement. Every single time it's done, it's an outstanding achievement. And this is why, we had a discussion, didn't we, about manager of the year as well. And I think it's really important to remember what you've just said there, Daniel. Winning trebles is almost a freakish achievement in any season. The fact that Celtic are amassing them, stockpiling, doesn't make the achievement in any single season any less. So for me, Brendan Rodgers should win that out the park as well.
And also, I think I'm right in saying 21 games in the Scottish Cup without defeat, which is just mind-blowing.
Is it 42 domestic cup ties for Celtic?
That's crazy.
And he's won 41 of them.
That's absolutely crazy.
So the Kilmarnock away in the League Cup was the only one that he hasn't won.
That is bonkers, regardless of who you're managing.
It's absolutely stupid.
The
numbers, and it just reflects on the fact that Celtic are really lucky to have Brendan Rodgers in charge. It was Brendan Rodgers that started this factory line of domestic clean sweeps, and it's carried on over the years. But he's the guy that made this, as you said, feel a normal event. Winning trebles will never ever be a normal event. Celtic should really enjoy this period of domination because none of us have ever experienced a period where it's just been as completely dominant as Celtic have been over the last, however long that is now, 15 years or whatever?
Aye, more or less. Let me read out a couple more comments. We've got tons of comments coming in. If you want to get involved in the discussion, please do. Mark says that we're wrong. We're asking the wrong question about Callum McGregor. We're asking how does his performance manage to lift the whole team from a 6 or 7 out of 10 to an 8 or 9. He's incredible. This one from John, he says, as a Celtic fan, I'm disappointed if we don't win the treble. It's the sign of the times. And Martin Nicholas Moore says, I think next season Celtic should play their youth team in the cup games as other clubs need a chance at silverware. They're just too good for Scottish football and could start the season with a minus 20 points and we could still win the league. I don't know if I'd go quite that far, but it has been a pretty mad period.
Well, you need to see what the reaction is across the city, don't you?
Of course.
We're all still waiting on this Andrew Kavanagh's takeover. God knows when that's going to happen, but it was supposed to. If it's on schedule, it should be done before the end of this month. I don't think that they've put in any plans in place for next season as things stand. in terms of who's the manager's going to be, what the squad looks like. So you need to see what the reaction looks like, if there's going to be a reaction from Rangers. My own view is that they're leaving it really late to start putting down the building blocks to make themselves competitive in time for the start of the next season. I think Celtic are miles out in front. But, let's see. Because, they'll obviously be coming in looking to make a difference and to, shake things up, be disruptors. So let's see. But Celtic just seem so far in front right now that it doesn't feel. I mean, I don't know how you would set about trying to bridge that gap in the space of a few weeks over the summer, because it's enormous. Yeah. And you just, it's difficult to see anything other than continued dominance for Celtic at this period of time. Brendan Rodgers still got a year left in his contract. Do you think he intends to end up his time at Celtic, if that's what this is, his final campaign, with anything less than another treble? I guarantee you there's no way. And I found it interesting after the game today, Rodgers was mentioning that he's now going to set, I think he called them performance targets for his players for the last 5 league games of the season. And that's all about, as discussed, when it's not nip and tuck, when you're operating in an environment where there's not a lot of jeopardy, it can be really hard to keep the standards up, to keep the momentum building. And clearly that's his way. He'll just now set aside this block of games, say, how many goals they're looking to score, how many points they want to take. Well, that'll be 15. And targets that, I think, obviously, I firmly believe that he started this campaign looking for 100 points on the board from the league. He's not going to achieve that this season, but he'll want to get as near it as possible. And he'll have, again, targets for how many goals he wants his team to score, just to keep them on their toes, to keep them motivated, and to keep them fully firing as they head towards the Scottish Cup final in May against Aberdeen.
Mark, again, says Rangers are a decade and at least £50 million behind. I think things like that, though...
These things can change really quickly. We've seen it before. When Ange Postecoglou came into Celtic, I don't think anybody really believed that he could do what he did in such a short space of time. That turnaround was incredible. Rangers started that campaign as champions and fell apart when the pressure was put on from Celtic and Ange Postecoglou. So it can change. We've seen it. All sorts of examples down the years.
The Dick Advick, Martin O'Neill coming in, overturning 21 points. Yeah. It can happen.
Yeah, it can happen. I think when Walter Smith went back to Rangers for his second stint. So it can happen. It has been done. But yes, I take the point. It does feel as if the gap has never been bigger. And you look at the Rangers squad right now and you think that thing needs blown up. That needs blown up and started again, which is going to require a whole load of work. And as I said to you, my concern from a Rangers perspective at this point is I don't think they've got started anywhere near early enough, which means that they might have a very similar looking group of players back in the building at the start of the pre-season. And nobody's going to turn them into a championship winning side. It's just not going to happen.
The comment I'm putting up there on the screen saying Brendan will be the most decorated manager in our history by the end of the season, plus wee James, the most decorated player, legend. I thought Forrest today was really good. I thought worth mentioning. Just Kuhn's dropped off, pretty massively his form.
Do you know the weird thing is, it's almost as if Brendan Rodgers kind of sees a thing in his head that he wants to phase James Forrest out, but he just can't do it.
Can he do it?
And that's testament to James Forrest's professionalism, the fact that he trains as hard as he does to keep himself in shape because he's not getting a lot of match time. And then inevitably, because it happened at this point last season, when push comes to shove, when big characters are needed to drive home Celtic's dominance and turn it into trophies, James Forrest gets let out of cupboard, and the level of his performance is as good as anything that you'll see. Kuhn is obviously he's dropped off. He was really good earlier in the season. But James Forrest, he doesn't show any signs of slowing down, physically or even in terms of just his sprinting capacity. He's still electric quick, and he's still a real
hungry.
Aye, hungry as anything. And I think he needs to score, and I'll bet you he does. I think he needs to score a league goal this season, and he'll have scored in each of the last 16 seasons for Celtic, which is just
remarkable.
It's crazy. But it really is. You have to put it all down to him and his willingness to put the work in. To even when he's not getting regular football, does he make a fuss? Does he throw his rattle out the pram? No, he doesn't. He's just there. And it's again much like Callum McGregor. Celtic are really lucky to have a guy like that with that sort of attitude and that level of professionalism. He's a real leader around Lennoxtown as well, behind the scenes, and just a guy that Brendan Rodgers must love having around the place.
Aye, definitely. And just another stat, sorry, I was going to jump in there. Just so many stats about Celtic today, but Callum McGregor gets 10th goal of the season. That means there's now 7 Celtic players this season that have got beyond the 10-goal barrier for the first time since 1967, which is, just underlines their dominance even more.
It does. It underlines a couple of things, Daniel. It underlines that Brendan Rodgers has been able to build a squad which has a depth to it and a quality. It's not just down to one or two contributors. It's spread. And that tells you, that points to, this is exactly what Brendan Rodgers was talking about when he was talking about trying to increase the quality. Well, they've done that, and there's evidence of it. But you're right, it also does demonstrate the sort of gap between Celtic and the rest. Celtic scored 5 today. It was 4 at half time. It could have been 8 or 9 if they'd wanted it to be. And that could happen in every game that they play between now and the end of the season. Because when they're at that level, nobody can live in them. Not in this country.
So, see, just before we move on from Celtic then, Keith, we've mentioned Brendan Rodgers. He's got 1 more year left on his deal. We've talked previously in this show about Idah, who's got 2 years left. Surely this summer, they have to be the big 2 that Celtic tie down. Surely, you would have thought. Is your gut feeling that Rodgers will stay on beyond next season?
Well, I think we had a discussion earlier, didn't we, when a couple of the guys seemed to wonder if this might be Brendan Rodgers' last season. I said there's no danger of that. He will at least see out the 3 years.
Yeah.
Because he made that promise to the Celtic supporters on day one back in the job, when a lot of them weren't very pleased to see him. I would imagine that those attitudes have changed. It then is going to be a matter of choice for Brendan Rodgers. What more does he want to achieve with Celtic? Does he have more to achieve with Celtic? I really strongly suspect, and I've said this previously, that he didn't realise how much he was going to miss the gig when he left it. How much he was going to, and his family were going to miss living in Glasgow. Even when he was at Leicester, he was still looking at property. In fact, he bought property on the outskirts of Glasgow, on the north side of the city, because they wanted to move back. They were missing it. So I think he's missed the football club when he left it. He's maybe went grass is greener in the English Premier League. I think it's a learning experience for him. And that's a very long-winded way, I think, Daniel, of saying I think he's really comfortable in his skin, happy at his work. I don't envisage in my head that he's going to do his 3 years and say, well, that's me, I've had plenty. I think there's more to come. I think he'll have an appetite for more. And particularly, he's got this vision that he wants to improve the club's European standing and status across the continent. And we've seen evidence of that this season. And next season, he'll want to, nudge that along again. He'll have irons in the fire already in terms of his transfer targets, because he'll have identified areas in the team that he needs, or the squad that he needs to strengthen for next season, in order for Celtic to take the next step in Europe. And that was a good Champions League campaign this season, but Brendan Rodgers will have it in his head that he can do a whole lot better than that.
Yeah.
And I think if he's given the backing which I think I absolutely would be certain that he will be given the financial backing from the board this summer, I think he'll make strides towards it. I mean, the one perhaps negative from Celtic today, or for Celtic, I would look at Idah. And I know we have the same conversation, Dan. He's just not given enough.
No, I agree.
I don't see a guy out there emptying his tank. And that what a big opportunity that was for him today. What a big moment that was for him to get the nod, to lead the line. He left me, I know he got his goal, but he left me unsatisfied with his level of performance. And it's his energy and his desire. It doesn't seem to fit with the rest of the components of the team, if you know what I mean. You've got guys falling about all over the place. Callum McGregor at his age, doing the running that he's doing to make things happen and he does he seems to play in the periphery for me. So that is an issue going into the summer. I'm sure Brendan Rodgers will have to look at and address, because I think Celtic have to make that next step in the Champions League, they're going to need more firepower. I think they're going to need almost like a statement signing in terms of a number 9 on a striker. And I think Idah is so frustrating, because I think he's got all the tools. He's got everything you need, apart from, I just don't know if the attitude's quite right.
Well, Keith, I'm delighted to say that Craig Swan can join us from Hampden today. Swanee, you were at the game. Obviously, we've just been talking about it. Celtic just utterly ruthless, as usual.
Yeah, how you doing, boys? Sorry for my late arrival. Had some work to get finished. Yeah, ruthless. That's probably the ideal way to describe it. St Johnstone were tight, compact in the early stages of the game, and I think we've said many times on this hotline, Celtic just sometimes take a bit of time to work it out. Callum McGregor's usually at the heart of that. I don't know what's been said before, but once again he gets involved again in solving a puzzle, if you like. And
we've both been saying, Swan, we've both been singing his praises. Thought he was absolutely outstanding today, McGregor. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers spoke about it after the game, about something that we've talked about on this hotline live quite a lot, about when teams go man to man, it's about finding the pattern of the game, finding exactly, finding the area, finding the point, finding the moment, when to spring, when not to spring. And as Brendan Rodgers pointed out after the game, he's done it loads of times at Hampden for Celtic. Something, he's got such a good record. I think I remember him scoring in a semi-final against Rangers, things like that. He's got a good record against Motherwell, I think, in a game as well.
Yep.
Maybe I'm trying to just go through my head here very quickly without checking it, but yeah, he's so instrumental. Listen, there's nothing else we can say about Callum McGregor, but yeah, ruthless. To go back to your original point, when Celtic got a sniff of it and got their noses in front, the way they really buried St Johnstone before half-time was frightening.
We were having a discussion there in terms of Celtic's player of the season this season. Obviously, Idah's grabbed the headlines by scoring all the goals, but I think there's an argument for Callum McGregor. Where would you be if you had a vote to cast on that one?
I guess it's a great question, Keith, because Callum McGregor's almost a victim of his own high standards, if you know what I mean. Callum McGregor's 9 every game, and everyone just goes, yeah, well, that's what Callum McGregor does. And then, a player comes in, for example, a Nicholas Kuhn at the start of the season, and he's 8 or 9 out of 10 performances in 12 games, and all of a sudden he's exalted up to a very high level. Idah's exceeded what everybody expected him to do this season. So, I think a lot of these things go on your expectation level. Idah's kind of exceeded expectations this season with what he's done. Callum McGregor's, listen, you only need to look at some of the games Celtic look. We talked about the Rangers game that was lost. The influence that Callum McGregor has. I've seen loads of games, even one just recently. Now, don't let me get this wrong here. Maybe against Hearts. I think maybe Celtic were again. First 10, 15 minutes, don't start the game very well, and then McGregor's just the one who just sorts it out. I think the way he makes everybody else play. Listen, it'd be very difficult to deny Dyson Maida given the season he's had. Another 2 goals today, but joint award, I'd say, between the two of them.
The other talking point, Swanee, that we were just getting onto.
Defence, yeah. That's why I've got no money from betting. Keith, I can't bet doing the rest.
The other talking point, Swanee, that we were just going on to was Idah. We've got a few comments coming in. Mark Fairfield says, Idah is nowhere near good enough. John says, I wish someone would hypnotise Idah into believing that it's still his first season with Celtic and he still has to play out of his skin for a Celtic contract. Keith was just kind of saying that as well, Swanee, that he wasn't particularly impressed with his display today. What did you make of it?
No, I think I still don't think overall there was enough there. Just the link play, some of the movements not as good as it should be. It was quite interesting listening to Brendan Rodgers after the game, and we asked him about his goal, about Idah's goal, and he said, yeah, he was in there, but there was another couple of moments as well, and I can think of one earlier in the first half, earlier at 0-0 when Dyson Maida got sprung with a pass and the ball went across the box, and Idah was I don't even know if he was in the box at that stage. I remember thinking to myself, I think the manager's going to be too impressed with that. He should be busting a gut to get across in the way that he did for his goal. So, listen, he got there in the end. He got a goal, and that'll be a massive goal for him after the week that he's had. But in general, he needs to do more. He's got to be doing more as a Celtic. So if you want to be number 9 for Celtic, you've got to do better than what he's doing at the moment. Simple as that.
You envisage any chance, Swanee, that Aberdeen can stop this Celtic procession when they come back for the final?
I mean, listen, you can never say never. You know, we normally say cup finals can be strange, and form book goes out the window and all of that stuff. But Celtic have proven over the years that that's just a load of rubbish. Form book doesn't go out the window when Celtic are involved. They just deal with it. And listen, we were here for a Premier Sports Cup semi-final earlier in the season, and everybody, Aberdeen had got their draw at Celtic Park in the league, and everybody was expecting them to have a good swing at Celtic. 6-0. And to be honest with you, the only thing you would say is the type of game that it'll be would suit Aberdeen in the fact that we saw in yesterday's semi-final when they're given a lot of the ball, they don't really know that much what to do with it. There was a lot of sideways and stale stuff yesterday. I think they're better playing in the counter-attack, so at least playing against Celtic gives them a better chance of having counter-attack opportunities. But you just can't not see Celtic scoring a barrel load of goals again, because they just look unstoppable at the moment.
Can't really disagree with that, Keith, can you?
No, that's why I said, I've congratulated them on the treble already. I've done a Paddy Power, I'm paying out early.
Keith Power, it's paid out.
So no, I as I said, Daniel, I'd be a little bit worried if I was Aberdeen about what's going to be waiting for me at Hampden in May, because what I noticed, Swanee, was Brendan Rodgers making it really clear that he's going to try and keep his players motivated internally by setting little performance standards for them for the 5 league games still to come. That's just his little way of playing tricks to get guys on their toes and make sure there's no drop-off. He wasn't happy with what he saw away at St Johnstone a fortnight or so ago. He's kind of got through that. He aimed a broadside across his own dressing room, had a bit of a blast. He's got the reaction he wanted, and I think he's now going to stay on top of them between now and the end of the season. I just think Celtic will end the season really strongly from this point on, and that would worry you if you're Aberdeen and you're turning up there, because there will be scar tissue from the League Cup semi-final from earlier this season. No question about it.
Yeah. And as that old adage that people talk about, there's cup final places up for grabs, but I think that's genuinely the case. We're in the Celtic squad, I think guys well involved, and there's all little mini motivations as you go along. For example, if Celtic get the title clinched at Tannadice on Saturday, as we all expect they probably will, only needing a point, straight away into another game against Rangers at Ibrox, having lost the last 2 against Rangers, that's motivation enough to go and show, right, we're the champions and this is what it's all about, to go there. So that motivation's there, and then it springs you into, I think it's 3 games in a week before the cup final, so there's no time to back off. So yeah, I agree with you, Keith. I think the manager will demand that there's no drop off, because that's a dangerous thing, isn't it? Celtic have shown in the past an ability to flick a switch when it comes to games that really matter. That's something they've been really good at, but you don't want to be meandering around for 2 or 3 games before you come to Hampden and then expect to click that switch. You can't expect it to happen all the time. So, and Rodgers is a perfectionist. There's been a few games lost since the turn of the year, and I'm not sure he'll like that.
No.
And the losses column, I'm not sure he'll. I know you spoke earlier in the season, Keith, about possibly 100 points, and it looked as though that was something that was going to happen, but they've let a few results slip, and I don't think he'll want any more. So,
you can tell
he always talks about going through the line powerfully, and this is the time of the year when a Celtic player should really be pushing on, and the trophies are handed out, and this is when you shine and start to sparkle. So I'm assuming that's what he'll be looking for. The last 2 performances have certainly suggested that.
Swanee, I know how busy you were today with your post-match duties, so we really appreciate you joining us on the Hotline Live.
Thanks, Swanee.
Massively appreciated. But we'll let you get off, let you get home.
Okay, lads, all the best. See you later on.
Thanks, Swanee, much appreciated. Craig Swan there at Hampden.
He's a trooper, isn't he? I knew that Swanee would turn up.
I know. I didn't even preview that we might have some from Hampden because I just thought the guys were so rammed. So we massively appreciate it. We obviously, Keith, we need to talk about yesterday's semi-final.
Yeah.
Because Hearts versus Aberdeen. We mentioned last week that Neil Critchley looks like he's kind of got this habit of failing to win the big games as Hearts manager.
It's just mounting up, isn't it? It's just mounting up. And now, the real worry for me for Hearts is they're going into this post-split bottom 6 setup. And these are 5 games that Hearts need to win. You know, if it builds. So, first one, you need to beat Dundee at home at Tynecastle. And I see if you do that on the first day back to league business, you're home and hose, you're fine, right? It's not a great season, but you're not going to get dragged into anything if you can put 3 points on the board on day one. But that makes it a must-win match by its very nature. And these are the games that they can't win. Mm-hmm. And if Dundee were to go to Tynecastle, and this is a decent Dundee side, I find it really difficult to work out, why they've been dragged into this situation where they're currently sitting second bottom in the relegation playoff place. Because I think they're a better side than that. And on their day, they've shown it, they can score goals. I'd be worried for Hearts if Dundee go there and win at Tynecastle. I think it's panic stations time. And I know that people are looking at Hearts thinking, well, they should be safe. They're sitting, well clear of the main issues at the bottom of the table. But that'd be Dundee. That's a 6-pointer, that game, effectively. If Dundee can win it, I think Hearts just start to, they just might start to get dragged into something that they really don't want to be getting dragged into. And you just get the feeling there's a disconnect with the supporters. They're not en masse. They're just not buying into Critchley. I don't think they've got faith in him. I think the more these results pile up, and granted, I think after going down to 10 men on Saturday, at least there was a bit of fight and character and effort, and I think the Hearts fans responded well to that. But the bottom line is they've walked away defeated again. Another really painful result to add to a whole line of painful results that they've had this season. I would hate to see Hearts getting dragged into it at the bottom of the table, but I would really worry for them if they don't start with a positive result, and if they do that, and if they take care of Dundee, they get the 3 points. Well, everybody can just start digging out their flip flops and heading for the beach. But if they failed to do that against Dundee, and if they're defeated on their home pitch by a Dundee side which is sitting in 11th right now, I think it starts to become really squeaky bum time. I really do.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And just to back up your, saying about the Hearts fans, you don't feel that they're taking to Critchley. Got a couple of comments here. Liam says, don't care what anyone says. Forget the red cards. Critchley, this is on you. It's time to go. Rab Moore says, now the dust is settled. Empty Critchley today. Thought it was going to take it to the end of the season. No ifs, no buts. Why drag this out any longer? But I would just throw in, Keith, obviously there's been a lot of talk since yesterday about the refereeing display from John Beaton yesterday. Frank says, just watched the game at Hampden, was very surprised that Hearts had 2 players sent off. I've been going to football since 1955. If those were bookings and sending off offences, then I'm done. Potentially very good game ruined by an overzealous official. And friend of the show, Kyle Gunn, says, John Beaton's refereeing performance was absolutely dreadful. Way worse than he usually is, and that is saying something. To send Devlin off for those 2 yellow cards was daylight robbery. So, I mean, can Neil Critchley perhaps point to the officials yesterday and...
I don't think the Devlin sending off, I agree. I don't think, certainly the second yellow, I don't know what John Beaton's thinking about, because, Devlin's a competitive wee guy, isn't he? And he puts himself about and, he's a good bet for a yellow card most times he walks onto a football pitch. But there was no malice in that. I think his eyes were fixed on the ball. It's going over his shoulder. It's just not a booking. But at that point, the damage is already done. And I think that the red card, who was it, Steinbender? I think it is a red card. I think John Beaton's correct to make that decision. I've looked at it from a few various angles, and to me, Keskinen is getting in. He's getting in behind, and there's another Hearts defender at Forrester's trying to move across, but he's actually going in the wrong direction. For me, Keskinen's getting on to the end of that, and he's got the pace to carry him towards the penalty area. I think it's a goal scoring opportunity. Look, do you know what? I've seen a lot worse decisions made. For me, that's my first viewing, and then repeatedly looking at the slow-mos. I think it's a red card. I think it's the right decision. I think it's a stupid tackle, actually. And he's only got himself to blame for it. He's certainly given the referee a chance to bring the red card out. And for me, I think it's merited. I know Hearts did respond, as I said, and they put on a spirited performance to take the thing as far as they ended up taking it. But they never looked like they actually believed that they were going to get the result. They were hanging in with 10. And I think it's their own doing. So they need to, I tell you what, they can't afford to feel sorry for themselves. They need to dust themselves down. They need to get themselves back up off the floor, and they need to attack the first game back in the post-split fixtures. Because if they're feeling sorry for themselves going into that, I guarantee you Dundee won't go into that feeling sorry for themselves. They're going to have, an attitude. They know that they're fighting for their lives. And if Hearts have got a few bruised egos or tired legs or wrong attitudes, it could be a kind of one of those days that kind of shakes them back to life a little bit. Because, as I said, as I keep saying, I'm not sure that they're as safe as some people are making out just yet.
And just finally on Critchley, look, this is just my opinion. Nothing on it, and I hope I'm wrong for the record, because you don't like to see managers getting sacked and Hearts changing managers every 5 minutes. But we've talked about this Tony Bloom, 10 million quid getting invested. Just personally, I just can't see Neil Critchley being the man taking that forward. I just don't see it. I hope I'm wrong. I'm sure he's a very good coach, but just the way things have gone, I think it's going to take a lot for him to recover from this position. It's
not been a good season for him, has it? Now, he came in and he steadied the ship. I actually think, and I don't know how the model will work at Hearts in terms of who has the final say-so in terms of, right, supercomputers identified this one, that one, and that one. Does Critchley get involved in that discussion? Is Critchley just a head coach who takes whatever players are put onto the training ground? Does he have a say in it? So these are all going to be interesting things. They obviously went for Critchley for a reason. They obviously believe, or the algorithms will have identified him as the guy that with the qualities that they want in a head coach. I think I'd be tempted to give him another transfer window, because the squad was horribly out of shape and imbalanced, the one that he took over. So you've got investment, you've got Brighton's computer, and you believe that Critchley was the guy in the first instance. I think you've got to maybe give him this window and see what it looks like, and see what Hearts look like at the start of next season. But I think he'd be then in the very unfortunate position of starting the next campaign, already with pressure on him and already with people scrutinising, the standard of his work. So he could begin next season kind of like a dead man walking, because that's the feeling you're getting from the Hearts supporters. They do seem to have made up their mind on him. I think, let's see what this model looks like. Let's see what the transfer window looks like, and let's see if Critchley can get a spark out of him. Because he took over Hearts in a real bad situation earlier this season. They're not great, but they're improved from where they were.
Aye, that's fair. Aye. Only time will tell, I guess, but I think that brings us to the end of Sunday's Easter special, Hotline Live with Record Sport. Tommy, one of a number of people wishing us a happy Easter in the comment section. And
Thank you, Tommy.
Yes, thanks, Tommy, and thanks to everyone for watching. Thanks for all the comments as usual. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back to do it all at 6 p.m. again tomorrow, and we hope you can join us then. Keith, hope you enjoy your eggs tonight.
Oh, I will. Don't worry about that. And a biryani. Homemade chicken biryani for my Easter dinner.
Lovely. Nice one. Well, enjoy. I'll be having my Rustler burger. Thanks very much for watching at home, and I hope you can join us tomorrow. Cheers.